Okay, we'll start with this. Sebastian Fundora feels his little sister, Gabriela, has overtaken Claressa Shields as #1, pound for pound. Last in action this past weekend opposite the ring, a very game, Alexis Kubicki. Sebastian respects Claressa and everything she's accomplished, and yes, he is biased towards his younger sister, Gabriela, but based on what he's seen in their recent fights, the WBC Super Welterweight champion honestly believes Gabriela has supplanted Shields as the #1 fighter, pound for pound, in women's boxing. Of course, we give Claressa her flowers, because lots of achievements. Fundora told the ring, and she's knocking these girls out now too, Claressa. I think she's comfortable at heavyweight, but my sister's just doing that over and over and over again. And there's lots of opposition for Gabriela. There's lots of opponents for her to fight. Heavyweight is not as big of a division in women's boxing. And again, I'm not taking nothing from Claressa Shields. She's a great fighter, a historical fighter, but as of right now, I think my sister is #1. The ring ranks Shields second on its pound-for-pound list behind Ireland's Katie Taylor, who has a better resume than both. Better than Claressa's, and certainly better than Gabriela's. But the two-time Olympic gold medalist from Flint, Michigan is widely viewed as the most accomplished woman boxer in history, at least in some circles. She has won world titles in 5 divisions, became undisputed champion in 3 weight classes, and barely lost a round since she turned pro nearly 9 years ago. The 30-year-old Shields, 17-0 with 3 KOs, owns the IBF, WBA, WBC, and WBO heavyweight titles. There is not a ring title for female heavyweights. The 23-year-old Fundora, 16-0 with 8 KOs, of Coachella, California, is the undisputed flyweight champion and ranked #6 on the ring's pound-for-pound list. The rangy southpaw successfully defended her undisputed crown this past Saturday against late replacement Alexis Kubicki, forcing a 7th-round stoppage after Alexis was taking too many shots, too many punches. An interesting tidbit, Gabriela Fundora has ended her last 3 fights all in the 7th round, all by way of knockout. In total, Gabriela has produced knockouts in 5 of her last 6 fights. Her big brother thinks that trend will continue.
Me too.
I just think it's more of us showing what we have, Sebastian said. I know because I'm always in camps with her. I'm always watching her grow. We knew these things were going to happen for her. It's just now we're showing the public what we have. It's like having a new video game and having your friends come over and all of your friends are impressed because you have the game. That's why I'm so proud, because through these moments in our lives, we've been growing together as fighters, as human beings, and I'm watching her do her best in there, and at her best, everybody recognize her as the best. So again, it's easy to say, but I'm proud. I'm a proud brother, a very, very proud brother. But is he right? Has Gabriela supplanted Claressa Shields? Of course not. Not yet. But she'll have her chance. She'll have her crack at the apple because Gabby is several years younger than Claressa Shields, and she is already an undisputed champion in what is a more densely populated weight class than any of those weight classes where Claressa has campaigned. 154, 160, 175. Heavyweight. Consider that Gabby is already 16-0 at 22 years old, and Claressa is 17-0. Having debuted as a professional in 2016, I'm pretty sure that if Claressa could have fought more, she would have. But the reality is, there really ain't that many girls at 154, 160, 168, 175, what have you.
It's the same thing.
There's always been a scarcity of quality fights and quality scalps at those weights because, quite honestly, a lot of women just don't run that big, and the ones that do, well, they ain't boxers.
They're diabetics.
So that is what leaves the door open for a Gabby Fundora to maybe at some point become the face, because she's young, because she's got her whole career ahead of her, because she campaigns in more densely populated weight classes than Clarissa, and because honestly, where Clarissa just started knocking girls out, Gabby's been doing that.
Given her height and reach advantage, her punching power, and her boxing acumen, I'd say that she's gonna keep doing that.
The saving grace for Gabby is you don't need to be a boxing connoisseur, a hardcore boxing fan, or a boxing expert to enjoy her work. It's easy to digest.
Goes in there, beats a girl up, gets a knockout.
Now, it could be some years before that claim is legitimized, that she has supplanted Clarissa Shields. That's going to take some work. It's going to take some doing. But Gabby seems all in for the ride, and so does her proud brother. We'll see what happens. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, boxing insider Rick Glacier took to his social media and stated, Top Rank's Hall of Fame matchmaker Brad Goodman, regarding Terence Crawford's huge win over Canelo, says, I wasn't surprised at all. I know what type of fighter he is. I know what makes him tick, his competitiveness, and he wants to always prove his doubters wrong. Wants to be the best at whatever he's doing. He's an absolute winner in and outside of the ring. Despite his great success, he's the same great guy and a great family man. Everyone should be rooting for this guy. I'm proud to know him. Thank you, Brad.
He is a great guy, and Brad Goodman isn't the first one to say that everybody should be rooting for Terence Crawford. I've said that myself.
On many occasions and many live streams, I've said where there are some Americans who like to tear Terence Crawford down, his accomplishments, his resume so far. If he were from another country, if he were from the UK, they would have built that guy a church by now with that same resume, all before he beat Canelo Alvarez.
Maybe even before he beat Spence, because he was already pound for pound. He was already one of the more accomplished fighters in the sport. A foreign country might have appreciated Terence a lot more than this one.
So why did Americans give Terence Crawford such a hard time? The short answer is tribalism. Terence Crawford being with Top Rank,
being with Bob Arum, an old white guy,
and upon the inception of the PBC and what it became for some people, they viewed that as a means to channel their own tribalism, that here you have PBC, a black-owned business, and Terence Crawford is signed to some old white guy.
They really didn't like it in 2018 when he signed an extension with Top Rank. They felt that he should have went to the PBC.
Why, so that he could end up an alcoholic like Errol Spence and Adrian Broner?
I'm just telling you, that's what they held against him. That's what some people were mad at. That upon achieving free agency, he decided to stay with Top Rank. Some people wanted him to go to the PBC, and that has everything to do with tribalism. They used to call him Top Rank Toby.
I remember those people, those comments. I remember those videos here in the YTBC. They used to take shots at Terence for no other reason than he was with Top Rank. Yet being with Top Rank didn't stop the PBC from making 2 fights with Tyson Fury, who was also with Top Rank.
Ryan being with Golden Boy didn't stop the PBC from making a fight between him and Gervonta Davis. Underneath it all, the people at the PBC knew what kind of fighter Terence was, and they tried to bury him.
In the end, it didn't work, but let's not stray too far from the point. If Terence Crawford isn't more widely accepted, more popular in this country, it's because for years, there was an active effort to suppress him, to freeze him out.
And that has everything to do with tribalism.
Stupid, I know, but some people are stupid. What are you supposed to say? Just imagine if they didn't freeze Terence Crawford out, and upon arriving at 147, he gets that Danny Garcia fight, and he's the first to knock him out. And let's say he moves on from Danny to Keith, from Keith to Errol, all in a timely fashion. I think,
if not for them freezing him out, if not for them protecting their fighters, if he would have had those fights, oh yeah, he would have been a lot more popular, a lot sooner than he is now.
I've always been convinced that as soon as Terence Crawford gets access to those PBC welterweights, that's as soon as he'll beat the hell out of all of them. I'm convinced. And the fight against Canelo services as confirmation of that.
Canelo Alvarez has come up against one or some PBC fighters from varying weights and beat them all. Terrence beat him.
Didn't just beat him, he beat the hell out of Errol, too.
Division is the reason that Terrence is not more popular in this country. Division among the tribes, for lack of a better word. Idiots online who think that because the PBC is a black-owned business, the rest of the boxing world is supposed to care. It's either a good promotion or it's not. It's either it's a success or a failure, irrespective of who owns it. But, you know, those guys,
They want us to play with kid gloves on whenever we talk about the PBC or Al Heyman. Oh, we're supposed to grade them on a curve or something.
bullshit.
But that is what it is. I remember Terrence Crawford saying, after the Canelo-Alvarez fight that he just had, that he is now the face of boxing. And I wish that were true. I mean, I wouldn't mind that.
If he had another 4 to 5 years to give to the sport of boxing, but at 37 years old and courting retirement, how could he be the face now? Even off of this win. You know, Dimitri Bivol beat Canelo Alvarez, what was it, 2-3 years ago? And that didn't make him the face of boxing.
Sorry to say that Terrence is not the face now, least of all at 37, while he is contemplating retirement. The sad part is, I think he could have been if they wouldn't have frozen him out. I remember his first 2 fights at welterweight and the kind of metrics they brought in, the kind of TV ratings. The Jose Benavidez fight, that was the most watched fight in all of combat sports that year. So just imagine if he would have moved from that fight into a Garcia fight, then a Thurman fight, then a Spence fight.
Just imagine.
If they wouldn't have frozen him out and stifled his career, I think there's a legitimate claim that he could have went on to be the face, or at least more popular than he is now. The silver lining is that in spite of the efforts against him, he still came out on top. More than any of the PBC's fighters, more than many fighters in many ways, Terrence Crawford still came out on top and got to make a lot of money, proving people wrong. Which has led to a rise in Terrence's name being attached to certain fantasy fights. One in particular that we've talked about here on the channel, a fight between Floyd Mayweather and Terrence Crawford. Shane Mosely takes Terrence Crawford over Floyd. Shane Mosely did his best to take Floyd Mayweather's head off back in 2010, but even with that level of animosity, he knows how terrific he was. Nowadays, Mayweather, 50-0 with 27 KOs, prefers to be called TBE, the best ever. Mosely isn't entirely sure that he agrees with that, but finding someone in history who could match his skills is a difficult task. Not really. Not for me, anyway. I mean, Floyd Mayweather's era of welterweights was primarily comprised of guys who weren't real welterweights. They were all smaller fighters that moved up. I imagine that in a vacuum, in a time machine, Sugar Ray Leonard would give Floyd a lot of problems because he was naturally bigger. Tommy Hearns, who was even bigger. Terrence Crawford has always floated around the topic of conversation. It wasn't until his win over Canelo this past weekend that Shane Mosely was willing to say that Crawford, 42-0 with 31 KOs, isn't simply on Mayweather's level, he's a notch above it.
I agree.
I think Crawford is better, Mosely told Fight Hub TV. I would say Crawford is a better all-around fighter. Before Crawford showed up at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas with some newfound muscle, Mosely believed he couldn't win. He's 2 months shy of 3 full years older than Alvarez, and for the last few years has fought only 2 or 3 weight divisions below him. None of that mattered, as he won a close but clear decision. Mayweather also bagged a win over Alvarez 12 years ago, with Crawford becoming a 3-weight undisputed champion. Pundits and fans are playing fantasy matchmaker, so who would win? Mayweather, when he was an active fighter, loved to remind people of his work, often saying that 50 have tried and 50 have failed. According to Shane Mosely, if Crawford were Mayweather's 51st opponent, he would have got the job done. Mayweather is really good. You can't knock him. But I think Crawford would have had the edge because of his long arms, and he's bigger, Mosely said. It would have been hard for Mayweather to counter. That's the same way I see it. Most people don't realize that Floyd Mayweather had a reach advantage in practically every fight that he had. He never had to deal with somebody with longer arms than he had in tandem with his speed, all of which lended itself to his range control. Because he's got speed and he's got reach, and a lot of the guys that he's fighting at welter ain't even real welters, with the dimensions of a real welterweight, like, say, a Sugar Ray Leonard, a Tommy Hearns. Floyd Mayweather popularized the Philly shell, rolling punches off the shoulder, and he was able to do that quite effectively against the guys that he fought.
But against a Sugar Ray Leonard, who's taller and longer and stronger with speed of his own, or a Tommy Hearns, who stands in at what, 6 feet, 6'1" at 147?
Rolling their punches off the shoulder would be harder to do because they can come down on you. They can come down with chopping right hands, touch you on the side of the head. It's not those little guys with short arms and slow feet like what Floyd was used to.
Floyd had a reach advantage over everybody that he fought, but he wouldn't have that over Terence Crawford. Terence's arms are longer.
Terence doesn't need to be close to him to touch him with punches. From the outside coming in, he could get Floyd to shell up, then bring something over. And just like Shane said, because Terence's arms are longer, it's gonna make it harder for Floyd to counter and counter safely.
I'm imagining a fight at 140 or 147.
I would go with Terence Crawford to win the fight at those weights, as Terence proved to be a much harder puncher at 140 and 147 than Floyd Mayweather was. By the time Floyd got up there, he started having hand issues and his output was greatly diminished. Notice that the mythos around a fighter is amplified should that fighter retire undefeated like Floyd Mayweather did. It gives off the impression that nobody in history can figure this guy out, but Terence Crawford might retire undefeated.
So what does that say?
What does that mean? Near as I can tell, Terence has proven over time that he was a more devastating puncher than Floyd at 140, at 147, and at 168, where Floyd never fought because he was too goddamn small.
Contrary to popular opinion, Floyd's defense was not impregnable because Chino Maidana got through, Shane Mosely got through.
Chino cracked him in the mouth, chipped his tooth.
Shane cracked him too, really hurt him. He didn't finish him, but that's not the point. If those guys can get in, Terence can get in.
Talk about Floyd Mayweather's Philly shell, talk about Terence Crawford's switch hitting. That's the signature for both fighters.
Both of them.
Floyd Mayweather popularized the Philly shell and rolling punches off the shoulder, and Terence Crawford popularized switch hitting, fighting southpaw, fighting orthodox.
So how well would Floyd's Philly shell hold up against Terence Crawford's switch hitting? If Terence starts off orthodox and then switches over to southpaw, you know Floyd didn't really like southpaws.
He would alternate the guard for southpaws. He'd alternate from the Philly shell to a high guard. And if he does that with Terence, should Terence switch over to southpaw, Floyd's gonna leave his body exposed.
At which point Terence Crawford can go to his body.
I mean, at welterweight especially, Floyd Mayweather was doing more to run out the clock than beat the man opposite the ring.
Often glancing at the timer to see how much time was left in a round, I remember Floyd Mayweather was running the clock more than he was trying to beat the other guy up, whereas Terence is a lot meaner and a lot more spiteful.
Now, this idea that Floyd Mayweather is the best ever because he retired undefeated, so did Joe Calzaghe, so did Rocky Marciano, so did Andre Ward.
Are they the best ever too?
You know, Usyk might retire undefeated. Terence might retire undefeated. Are they the best ever too? How does this work?
Bottom line,
If we're gonna do this fantasy fight thing, and we're gonna have that conversation, I would go with Terence Crawford to beat Floyd Mayweather at 140, at 147, and above.
too big, too strong, with athleticism and boxing acumen of his own.